So tonight we're going with number 2 here. I did this with a mouse, so you can see my my mouse writing isn't the best. But we're going to do Alaska, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, North and South Dakota, Nebraska, and Kansas. So we'll start with Alaska. And I have 3 different councils there. I'm not sure there's many more than that, but these 2 on top are actually a couple of my favorites. Camp Carlquist. I like the design of them, and you know, the little railroad thing sticking out the top. I also like the design, the shape of these lost lakes. And on the other hand, this Camp Gorish is not one of my favorites, but this is the Northern Lights Adventure Base. So that's Alaska. And then when I used a lot of the ones I have from Washington because I know Jeff would be interested. So these are I'm starting with Chief Seattle, and these are the 2 I have for Camp Brinkley. The anniversary issues both. And then this is the only one I have for Camp Edwards. This is Camp Parsons. You know, this is an interesting one here. It's one of my favorites and one of the first ones I ever got. I remember back probably in the early 2000s, I probably paid $30 for this. I'd had to have it. And it was so neat. But I must have spent weeks trying to figure out what the 6 meant. And then one day I had an epiphany and I realized it's not a 6, it's a CP for Camp Parsons. But for weeks, I couldn't figure out why there was a 6 for this camp. So anyway, I did figure it out, Jeff. More Camp Parsons, then Camp Pigot or Pigo. Camp Shepherd has got this Pacific Northwest design. I kind of like those. I just got these actually only a few months ago. And then on to Grand Columbia. So this is Camp Fife and Camp Bonaparte. Not much else to say about them. I like the design. I always like patches that have something sticking out of the border. I know they're more expensive to make, so a lot of camps and councils don't make them, but I like them. And then Inland Empire, Cowell Scout Reservation, and then Inland Northwest probably was the evolution of Inland Empire, and they took over Cowell Scout Reservation and Camp Cowell's, and they made a lot of they have several camps, as you'll see in the next couple slides, but they made a lot of sets where they were numbered. This is number 78, I think, or 73, and I have several other numbered sets. Some actually pretty low numbers. This is number 2. I have that set. I kind of like the Camp Grizzly ones. You know, it's funny on this one here, kind of looks like a place you don't want to misbehave. But on this one here, that bear looks like a zombie. So I think that's pretty cool. It's Camp Easton. And this is Cub Country. And at one point, you know, Camp Cowell's was in the in those sets of those numbered sets. And then all of a sudden Cub Country showed up and Cowell's was out. So I don't know whether they renamed it or not sure, but that's what I think. And this was a good set. I don't know how I managed to get this. I called the council. I said, give me the lowest number. They said, how about number 1? I said, yeah, that sounds low. I'll take it. And this is just kind of a reminder that camp was closed in 2020. And this isn't the last time we'll see a COVID reference. This sounds like a fun place. The North Idaho High Adventure Base. And I might add parenthetically that even though we're doing Washington now, and this may be in Idaho, I kept it with the council location. So, but it looks like a lot of fun is had there. And then they made several with just their council camps, you know, where leaders are born. I like that logo or that slogan. And Mount Baker, Fire Mountain. There are 3 different border colors on these two. Just got those 21 and 22. And Camp Black Mountain. I think Camp Black Mountain may have closed. And I only say that because this one here says, thanks for nearly a century of scout camping. And if you were still open, why wouldn't you just wait for the century and say, thanks for a century? So my guess is they close, but I could be wrong. Wouldn't be the first time. All right, Pacific Harbors, Camp Thunderbird and Camp Hobus. I always like these Pacific Northwest symbology. So anytime I get something with one of those, I take it. I'll grab it. But I think those are really cool. Okay, on to Oregon, and there's some interesting stuff on in the next slide or two. So Cascade Pacific Council, they made a series of these things where they had this guy with the semaphore, and then they just, the backgrounds changed a little bit. But so this is Camp Cooper. I do like this one with the polar bear, and Camp Baldwin and Camp Pioneer. But I'm not crazy about the design just because they could have done so much more. Camp Merriweather. This is kind of a segue to Columbia Pacific because Columbia Pacific, I believe, was the previous owner of Camp Merriweather. And actually, I kind of like this one. I don't know what about it intrigues me, but I like it. All right. So here's the interesting thing. Cub World is from Cascade Pacific. Apparently, the patch company had contracts with Cascade Pacific and Columbia Pacific because when they ordered these, they put Columbia Pacific on them. And that's wrong. They were both issued by Cascade Pacific. So you got one with Columbia Pacific, that's an error. And then one with, because I thought it was odd when I first got them and I did a little research and I found out it was the error. All right. This is the only slide I will probably ever have with a single patch on it. And that's in homage to our friend there. This is his favorite patch and it's a nice one. And maybe later in the presentation or later in the evening, we can find out what the significance of May 18, 1980 is. I've had that one for a long time. All right, Camp Crater Lake Council, Camp McCaleb, Camp McClellan, and Camp Macawala. This is interesting, the Biscuit Fire. I'm sure there's a good story behind that. And Oregon Trail, they made these, for Camp Baker, they made these 50th anniversaries, and they kind of went on the cheap. Rather than numbering the patch, they numbered the certificate that they gave you with it. So if you pull that off, it's no longer numbered. But I have the certificate, so I keep them together. I like the design though. And then more Camp Baker. On this one here, I think they did a whole series of the Scout Law with Camp Baker. I've got several others. And they're all nice. I don't have them all. I'm still working on getting them, but I've got most of them. And then Camp Malacqua. That's nice. Let's see. Okay, into Idaho. Grand Teton has a lot. Treasure Mountain is the first one. I definitely like this one. I like these too, but I don't need 3 of the same kind. And then Island Park. And again, I like all these designs. I just, if you're going to make 3 patches, make 3 different patches. And then Treasure Mountain, Camp of the Tetons. I thought that was kind of cool. And Little Lemmy. And then I like this one. I like the design of it. I like the name, Krupp Scout Hollow. It's the only Scout Hollow I have. And then this is a Salmon River High Adventure Base. Also looks like a fun place to hang. And Camp Morrison in Ore Council, some of these patches, I don't think the design is very eye appealing, but some of them I do. The top three, not so much. The bottom three I like. But I like the fact that they make them because otherwise I wouldn't be able to collect them. Snake River, Camp Bradley. All right, so this is Montana. As you can see, this is all the CSPs, all the camp CSPs I have for Montana. So if anybody has any or knows of any, I can replace the tumbleweeds with something better maybe for the next time I show this. In Wyoming, I'm pretty sparse too. This is it. But at least I've got something. Camp Buffalo Bill. And then North Dakota is Northern Lights Council. And some of these are really nice. I love the Yogi Bear one. That's why I made it a little bigger. And Camp Wilderness, this is the camp logo, I believe. It's on most of the patches. But they make one every year, and they're all different and they're all nice. So kudos to them. And I'm not exactly sure what the big four is. I've talked to people who I would think are in the know, and they say that that is definitely a camp. So until I hear otherwise, I'm going to leave it in there, but I don't know enough about it to say for sure. South Dakota, we got the Black Hills Area Council, and this is Medicine Mountain Scout Ranch. And you can't see it so much in this one, but the and I don't know why they made two of these, one with just a little more detail in the buffalo, but in the back, it's got the MM for Medicine Mountain. And then of course this one has it here, and this is ghosted, but it's on there too. And then Nebraska, they don't have tumbleweeds, they have corn, but I don't have any CSPs. So and then finally Kansas is the last one. It's going to be a short presentation tonight. Brown Memorial Camp, 2002, 2007. I don't know if they did it every 5 years. This is the only two I have. I like the Dane G. Hansen Scout Reservation CSPs. I think they're nice. They're clean. They're good looking. I like the name of the place too. That's kind of cool. And the Jayhawk with the Valley Scout Reservation, you know, these are both issued for a tradery and auction. And this Silver Club, I assume, was for people who donated a lot to the auction. And this was probably for a lesser donation. I think this is a way cooler patch, you know, with the full color and everything. This one's kind of dull, but this one is very cool, at least in my humble opinion. And Quivira, interesting things on Quivira. So it's Quivira Scout Ranch, Camp Kansas, and Camp Tawakoni. And you can't really see it too well on these patches, you know, even if when I made them bigger, you really have to see it in person. But the Tawakoni, it seems like it's separated into two words. And when I first got these, because their OA Lodge is Kansas Lodge, so I assumed that Kansas was the lodge, and this might have been maybe an old lodge, and that only the Quivira Scout Ranch was the camp. But that was fine. And then I wasn't sure what happened to this place. Anyway, I did some research eventually, and I found out that this was a camp at least into the 2000s, and it was always one word. Every place I found it, it was one word, but it was definitely a Boy Scout camp. And also, I definitely got confirmation on Kansas being a camp when I got this. I ended up getting these two CSPs or JSPs, and Camp Kansas is clearly on there. So these are nice. I actually like these a lot. Like I say, I like a clean design, and these are. And I think it's cool when you kind of show up, brag about your camps a little bit when you go to Jamboree. So I don't know where this guy goes to camp, but I bet it's up north, at least up somewhere. Well, I see in the chat, Jeff explained why that CSP is dated May 18th, 1980. So that's actually pretty cool. I'm glad to know that. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah, but St. Helens blew that date, and that was when we lost Camp Spirit Lake. So yeah, and the one that you had to shipwreck on is was the 100th was issued at the 100th anniversary, the shipwreck of the Norwegian vessel Struan, and it shipwrecked right off the coast of at Meriwether. So a lot of the wood initially at Meriwether came off that ship because it was hauling timber. So
Okay.
there's some stories about it, but Meriwether's my favorite camp by far.